So we have question and
No.
answer?
Q&A.
Questions for Travis? Professor Hicks?
He's scared.
Oh, so afraid.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so you're arguing for free will, correct?
Yes.
So how do you respond to this as in we can't we can't choose who our parents are, we can't choose the color of our skin.
Sure.
We can't choose
Well, some people.
what
Sorry, go ahead.
where we were born or any of those factors. So how can you say we truly have free will when we can't control?
Okay, there's a couple things. I already stated that there's a facticity about us. We come into the world through no choice of our own. So I'm not saying we will ourselves to existence. We will our existence in reality, and that's the only thing we can do. Right? So obviously, you and I are privy to our parents, to their parents, and we can do that infinite regress, right? So at some point in time, there had to be either a first human, chicken, or egg, right? Or God, or whatever it might be. But the fact is that you and I exist right now. You are in control of your actions, I am in control of my actions. And those actions aren't predicated on what your parents did. They're predicated on what you do.
Am I allowed to ask questions?
No, it's fair. You had your 2 minutes. Yes, ma'am.
So when it comes to free will, you did talk about the biology and, not having control over that. But would that also include like chemical imbalances and not having
Absolutely.
the choices? Like if I was
Sure.
schizophrenic
Right.
and I was, my will was to go and, kill somebody because God's talking to me. And that's actually what I chose to do.
I would classify those particular actions as involuntary, as Aristotle does. I would say there's a nature of, I know it sounds bad, it's the nature of ignorance. The real issue here is, are we fully human? Do we have full capabilities with our capacities? So if those don't come to fruition, if my latent and nascent abilities don't come to fruition, I will never fully experience what it is to be free. I will only have a mitigated sense of it. Right? It'll come in and out or shift in and out. I can't understand what it's like to be schizophrenic, but I would imagine there's a lot of shifting going on in the mind. And if you have frontal lobe damage and those kind of things, you're going to have instances or limitations of those freedoms. Absolutely. In fact, this is why they might even suggest that certain people with mental debilities are of a certain age, 7, 8, 9, whatever it might be. They have those mental states where they can never appreciate the consequences of their actions. Yes, sir.
You stated we become what we choose to become.
Yes.
Do we really become responsible for our actions when there's things in our environment that affect our decision? Is that truly our free will when there is other people influencing, perhaps my friend influencing me to come to this debate and not solemnly on free will?
So you're saying your friend drugged you and brought you here, or that you
No.
decided that your friend suggested that you might enjoy this activity, so why wouldn't you?
A suggestion, and then it comes to
Yeah.
mine
So
to
okay,
take
gotcha. So again, I have no problem. This isn't an either-or situation. It's not absolute freedom versus absolute determinism. I think there's obviously some middle ground here because, again, I admit there's a facticity about us that we cannot change or affect. Right? But what can you affect? You can affect the nature of what friends you choose to have, right? And they're probably a reflection of the exact sort of person that you want to be. That's why you call them your friend, because you might have similar values.
Another question?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, would you apply your same arguments to the capacity of an animal?
Well, they have limited capacities with regard to consciousness, at least levels of consciousness and awareness. So I think they're more mechanistic. They certainly have a sense of freedom, but they're different than us because we abstract about it. We write books and talk about it. We can discover things like mathematical formulas and such. So the level of awareness and consciousness, I think, dictates the distinctions between us and higher order mammals as you go down. And even simple life forms like moss growing on a tree, right? They're going to be subject extremely, at least with regard to perception and observation of them, to a very limited focus of what they could do. That is, they do what they do. It's hard to say that about humans, in my mind.
Okay.
Isn't there a connection with regards to the culture we are a part of and the choices we make, such as, say, for example, food? There might not be certain food items that are available to us in our culture, whereas in other parts of the world they might partake. Say, like in eating insects, you know, we don't see that as a delicacy, but in other parts of the world they do, just purely because of the culture that they were born into. Do you see a connection there with culture?
Why, I guess I'm not sure why that would be a problem with free will. So
There's, okay, so say people hunt zebras in Africa, but we're not going to make the choice to eat a zebra, obviously, because there are no zebras here to hunt.
right,
So-
unless we get it off the internet or something.
Right.
Yeah.
So wouldn't that be basically showing that we are kind of products of the environment we are?
Well, again, I don't disagree. We're products of our environment. That's the issue. Isn't whether or not environment influences us. If anybody states that, then we just need to walk out the room. Of course, the environment influences. That's where we become the kind of people we become. Reality is not independent of us. We participate in reality insofar as we can become who we want in reality.
That will conclude my questions for Travis. So now, Nico, you have a chance to say your
Okay,
So the first negative construction,
my name's Nico. I'm just going to start with two definitions from Merriam-Webster's online dictionary.
Definitions.
Voluntary choice or decision is definition 1, and freedom of humans to make choices that are not determined by prior causes or by divine intervention is definition 2. Voluntary choice or decision refers to a choice that is made completely upon the will of the deciding agent. As a simple example of a voluntary choice, consider a person who decides to donate work at a homeless shelter because they want to help people. In contrast, a person who is working at the homeless shelter to fulfill court-ordered community service could be considered to be making an involuntary decision. The actions of the law enforcement system directly affect the outcome of the decision not to attend community service, and the agent is forced to choose between disobeying the court and doing community service. The decider is again free to pursue his new dominant desire and act in alignment with his will, voluntary choice, but the perceived rewards and consequences were changed by the actions and potential actions of the justice system. Outside forces that deterministically change your dominant desire are the defining attribute of involuntary choices. And the second definition refers to a choice that's not determined by any preceding events, including your culture, which is an environment. And then explaining the belief. Causal determinism is the belief that the present state of things is the result of the past, and that the future state of things will be the result of the present. This belief asserts that nothing is uncaused. This, applied to our will, is incompatible with free will, because if our will is caused by prior events, it cannot simultaneously be uncaused by prior events. The reaction to a given situation is dependent on the state of the mind during the stimuli. The state of the mind at any given moment depends on how genes reacted to prior experience up to that point. Upon performing any action, the mind stores new memory, and a perception of reward or punishment is associated with the memory. Subjective analysis of memory works to reinforce or discourage the repetition of this action. If a person perceives reward for an action, the mind reinforces the repetition of the action in similar circumstances. If the mind perceives punishment, the mind associates the action with punishment and discourages repetition. In a given situation, the mind weighs mental rewards against mental punishments and makes a decision based on this information. What a person perceives as reward or punishment depends on values that were learned in prior experiences. I believe that values are learned because they change over time through experience, and because you did not have them when you were a baby. Any decisions you make will require access to information that is external. If information you base your decisions on was obtained through perception of people and phenomena outside your control, then those people and phenomena share responsibility for whatever decision you make. My decision to argue the deterministic point of view is a result of the knowledge I've obtained up to this point. If today I obtain knowledge that persuades me that free will is more realistic, my belief about free will change, and next time I debate on this topic, I will decide to argue in favor of free will. This illustrates how my belief and action are ultimately determined by what I gather from situations and environmental factors. The idea that we learn accepts the foundational logic of cause will. Learning is defined by Wikipedia as acquiring or modifying and reinforcing existing knowledge, behaviors, skills, values, or preferences, and may involve synthesizing different types of information. After we learn something, we can apply the knowledge to situations where we consider it useful. We can also decide which knowledge is best to utilize in a situation through experience. Our will is expressed through our choices, and it seems our choices are bound to the information we have and how we've learned to relate. Will is actually no more than the expression of knowledge. Knowledge gained through experiencing situations depending on your circumstance. But you cannot decide you can decide where you go to a certain extent depending on your circumstances, but you cannot decide exactly what happens where you go or exactly what you will learn while you are there. I believe that our ability to reason develops through experience because the way we reason changes over time. We can do little or no reasoning when we are babies, and our ability improves as we gather beliefs from the world around us. You'll notice that reasoning is tied directly to beliefs we hold. A person who has learned mathematical concepts through experience can utilize this knowledge for mathematical reasoning. If our wills are free of cause outside our control, then we would be able to pursue any course of action we can perceive as available. Instead, our will is bound to pursue our dominant desire, which is determined by our values, which are formed through experience. Which desire becomes dominant in a given circumstance is determined by values we've learned, and how we pursue it depends on which techniques we consider to be successful. These techniques are developed and ranked through subjective analysis of information from the physical world. At any given moment, it is possible for anyone here to break a window at their house. This is a choice among many that is theoretically possible for you to make, but mentally it is impossible for you to decide to do this without some stimuli resulting from the environment, the result of which is that the perceived benefit of breaking your window becomes greater than the perceived cost. If a fire is started inside your house and you're locked out, you might break your window, but otherwise you wouldn't just decide to break your window for no reason. There has to be a reason behind an action. Can you force yourself right now to take your phone out and break it? Are you free to do that? Do you have the will to just break your phone? I mean, it's an option to you. It's physically possible, but could you will your mind to do it? And my answer would be no. I don't think I could just decide to do something like that without a cause or a greater desire.
30 seconds.
Oh, wow. Yes, man.
I can pursue my own will, but this does not mean my will was not acted upon by outside forces. This idea that we're able to pursue our own will without being subject to force or coercion from humans is an important imaginary concept that can be utilized for self-satisfaction and the protection of individual liberty. Rejection of free will allows us to understand that our behavior is shaped by what we learn. If our behavior is shaped by what we learn, it is possible to teach the values required for a more pleasant and peaceful world. Obtaining, testing, refining, and spreading truth allows us to make decisions that are more aligned with our desires. The desire to solve problems we face can be accomplished by understanding the elements of those problems completely and applying the knowledge we've obtained as a species to designing and employing technology and techniques that solve those problems.
Thank you.